Okay, we're back for part three, and these are taking longer than I thought they would, and I apologize for that, but we'll get right into it. We're up to 1960. The Apartment won Best Picture that year. It's a great movie. I would go, instead of that, I would pick between La Ventura. It's a French film. It's a really good one, but I think I would go with Psycho, Hitchcock, for Best Picture in 1960. It's not Hitchcock's best picture, but it's one of his great ones. Uh, so that would be 1960. 1961 we go to. West Side Story won Best Picture. Not big on musicals, but I do like that one. It's got Natalie Wood in it. That's always a plus. And it's not a bad movie, not a bad story. Uh, The Hustler, I think, was up for Best Picture also. Didn't win. Never seen that movie. It's one of them that I need to see. Just haven't got around to it. A couple of other contenders, maybe One-Eyed Jacks with Marlon Brando and Carl Malden. It's a western that kind of had a troubled history of shooting. I think it had some different directors and different cuts and whatnot. It's a bit of a flawed western, but it's a pretty good movie all the same. Parent Trap came out that year, the Haley Mills movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It's a great one. I always watch that when that shows up on TV. But I would go Best Picture 1961, Splendor in the Grass, another Natalie Wood movie. Warren Beatty's, don't know if it's his first movie, but it's one of his first, if not his first. It's a little over the top melodramatic, maybe, but it's a really good movie, and that would be my pick for Best Picture 1961. 1962, Lawrence of Arabia wins Best Picture. I've seen parts of it, I think, but I've never seen the whole thing, and I'm kind of like Joe was talking about it. I think he hadn't seen it either, and it looks to me like it's Pierrot O'Toole riding around the desert of the Sahara on a camel in a bunch of sand dunes, which doesn't sound terribly interesting to me, but I'm sure there's more to the movie than that, and someday I probably need to watch it, but not in any huge hurry. I know that I think The Music Man was up for an Academy Award that year. I think I've seen that. I know I've seen it on stage at different playhouses. It's a good play. It's a fun play. To Kill a Mockingbird was up that year. It's a good movie and a good book. I don't. There's some other movies that were better, I think. Carnival of Souls is a low budget horror movie, kind of a disturbing, creepy, uh, out of sorts movie. It's a really good horror movie that kind of got forgotten and rediscovered years later. That's a great one. Jules and Jim, Jules at Jim, another Truffaut movie that's a great one. Uh, Ride the High Country, which is an early Sam Peckinpah movie. Sam Peckinpah, of course, did a lot of the Wild Bunch and a lot of other movies. Ride the High Country is one of his best. It's a great western, and that I would say was Best Picture of the year, except for there's a movie called, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's Vivre, Vive, Vive sa vie, I guess, and it's just a. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Um, Vive, Vivre, Savie, Vive Savie, and it's a girl who it is. I apologize. Hold on a second here. It is a Vive Savie. Well, anyway, Anna Karina plays a girl who breaks up with her boyfriend or husband. It's hard to tell. At the beginning of the movie, she goes through. Well, she doesn't have any money, so she goes through series of menial jobs and it eventually ends up in prostitution. And it's a downbeat movie. It's an episodic film told in a sort of a tableau instead of just a linear story. Very powerful, well acted, and even at times funny for such a downbeat material. But a great movie and one of my favorite movies of all time, even though I can't pronounce the title. That's what I would pick as the best picture of 1962 is Vivre or Vive Savie. 1963, Tom Jones won Best Picture. I've never seen it. How the West Was Won came out that year. Was a great movie. The Haunting is one of the great horror movies of all time. which is one that doesn't really show anything, but it creeps you out and it suggests stuff, and it's more works better, I think, when you suggest the horror in a lot of cases than when you show it. And it's just one of the great horror movies. High and Low, another Kurosawa movie. Akira Kurosawa is a great movie that came out that year. So I'm probably going to go with The Haunting. It's also the year that Beach Party, I think the first of the Frankie and Annette Beach movies came out. I love those things. I watch them every time they're on TV. Can't give that Best Picture, but I'm going to go with The Haunting for 1963. It's the year I was born. 1964, My Fair Lady wins Best Picture. I've seen it a long time ago. I don't really remember it. I know the story. It's to make a common woman into a upper class woman. It's an alright movie. Mary Poppins came out that year, was nominated. That's also a good one. That's been a long time since I've seen it. Fistful of Dollars was the Clint Eastwood, the first of the three trilogy of spaghetti westerns with Sergio Leone. That's a great one. Goldfinger, the best Bond movie, and a great movie on its own. Hard Day's Night, of course, with the Beatles, that sort of was influenced by French New Wave cinema and turned around and influenced some movies. So it's more than just a rock and roll pop group movie, even though it works well as that too. It's probably one of the best. It probably is the best of those type of rock and roll movies, but it's also more than just that. It's a great movie. My pick for the Best Picture of the year were with Anna Karenina again, Band of Outsiders. And this is the first. I've got a couple of these to show you. I don't have many movies anymore. Band of Outsiders. Two guys meet her and they kind of fall in love with her and run around, and she takes care of this lady that has a lot of money. They cook up this scheme to rob the old lady of her money, and they're hapless criminals at best and not very good at it, and things go awry, and it's just a great movie. Another one of my, if I was making my top 10 movies, that and Vis-a-Vis would be in there, On the Waterfront, some others. But that'd be my pick for 1964's best movie. It's a thriller, it's a film noir, it's a comedy, it's a great movie, so check it out if you haven't. 1960, I'm missing something here, but let me make sure, because Dr. Strangelove was in there somewhere, and that should have been, and I forgot to write that in. Anyway, well, I don't know. I left out Dr. Strangelove, which was, I think that came out in 1963. No, that was 1964. I'm sorry. Well, I just rambled on there, but Dr. Strangelove came out in '64, and that's a great one. That's like I said, that or Paths of Glory would be Stanley Kubrick's best film, in my opinion. Be between those two, but I still think Band of Outsiders tops it. So I'll go Band of Outsiders still, Best Picture of 1964. We move on to 1965, The Sound of Music. It's on TV every year. I've never sat through the whole thing. I know basically what it's about, the Von Trapp kids and all that. I guess it's a good movie. Someday I need to watch the whole thing. But, you know, Dr. Zhivago that year was about the same, as good, I guess, at least. And Alphaville is another Jean-Luc Godard film who he wrote and directed. Band of Outsiders has Anna Karenina in it again. So that would be my pick for 1965 would be Alphaville. And I'll give a special consolation prize to Help because I really love that movie from 1965. 66, Academy Award winning film. Best Picture was Man for All Seasons. I've never seen it. I don't know. So I don't know. I can't even remember what it's about, to tell you the truth. Blow Up was a great one. That's Antonio. I can't remember his last name, directed it. That's the film that has the cameo appearance by the Yardbirds in it. A guy is a photographer, and he thinks that he photographed a murder happening while he was photographing some people out in a park. And it's kind of a strange, weird film, but a great one. So that's a contender. Born Free was one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. I haven't seen it forever, but I still like it. Fantastic Voyage was another movie from that year that I remember liking a lot when I was a kid. but I would have to go with the contenders being closely watched trains, which is a Czechoslovakian film of a kid in World War II. Germany is still occupying the region, and he falls in love with a girl on a train. Really touching, great film. Uh, Django, the first Django, it was such a success that there were about 1 million Djangos made after that, sequels, and some of them didn't have anything to do with the original actors and directors and writers of the first Django. But if you love spaghetti westerns and action films, Django is one of the best, and it's just incredible. It opens with a guy walking through this slushy, sloshy mud in this rundown little town in the middle of nowhere, dragging a coffin, and there's a bunch of shootout and cartoon exaggerated shootouts and violence and scenes, and it's just a great spaghetti western, one of the great ones of all time. I would give that Best Picture for 1966, except I have to give it to another spaghetti western, one that, again, Joe didn't really like, but The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's the best of that spaghetti um, western trilogy that Clint Eastwood starred in, and it's a great movie. So Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for 1966 wins my Best Picture of the year. So we turn the page and we move to 1967. In the Heat of the Night won Best Picture. It's a good movie. It's all right. Um, Far from the Madding Crowd came out that year, which there's a version of that out this very year, but this was the version with Julie Christie. Really good movie. Thomas Hardy novel and old book. So that was a good movie. It's a movie called Le Samurai, which you would think would be about Japanese samurai fighters, but it's not. It's about a hitman in France, and kind of a late period film noir classic that's under the radar. Not many people know about it, but he's a hitman, and it's just about his life as a hitman. Really good movie, really uh, affecting movie there. And then you have The Graduate, which is a great movie and one of the best movies of all time too. You'd think that would be the best picture of 1967, but for me, the best picture of 1967 has to go to my favorite movie of all time, and that, of course, is Bonnie and Clyde, head and shoulders above any other thing, and that should have won Best Picture over In the Heat of the Night. 1968, Best Picture was Oliver, a stage play and a musical. I actually saw that. I remember going to Ridgely Theater to see that. I would have been about 4 or 5 when that came out, and I remember so a friend of my mother, she had a daughter about my age, and they were going, and they took me with them. And it's an okay movie. I've seen it on stage. I don't remember. I've never seen it since I saw it back in '68. The film. I've seen it on stage a couple of times. It's a pretty good play, fun little play. But I'd go Bullitt with Steve McQueen as Best Picture. Once Upon a Time in the West came out that year too. That would be a strong contender for Best Picture. So Bullitt. 1969, Midnight Cowboy won Best Picture. It's not a bad movie, but it just never did it for me. True Grit came out with John Wayne. That was a great picture, but again, far and away, the best picture in 1969 for me would be Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. It's a classic Western and one of the best Westerns of all time, if not the best. And kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde in the Old West, but great movie. Wild Bunch, 1969's Best Picture in my opinion. 1970, Patton won Best Picture. It's okay. Yeah, I saw it way back when. I'm not in any hurry to see it again. It was kind of dull. I would say maybe Five Easy Pieces, the Jack Nicholson film, would be a contender, but I would go with another Peckinpah film that stars Jason Robards called The Ballad of Cable Hogue, which is just another classic Western and a great one. I'm not a huge Western fan, but when they make good ones, I pay attention, and that's a great one. So Ballad of Cable Hogue, Hogue, if you're wanting to look it up and check it out. 1971's Best Picture was The French Connection. Never seen it. I know it's a classic film. It's one I need to see sometime. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. Some great movies I did see from '71 are McCabe and Mrs. Miller with Julie Christie, Warren Beatty. It's a great one. Two Lane Blacktop with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, oddly enough, and I think that's one of his only starring roles, and I think James Taylor, and so that's a strange kind of hippie, offbeat, weird film, but it's a really good one. A movie called Duck You Sucker, which sounds like a blaxploitation film, but it's not. The other name for it is Fistful of Dynamite. It's a spaghetti western, and it's up there with The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars and those things. It's just in Django. It's just a great spaghetti western. If you're into that stuff and you haven't checked that one out, it's definitely worth checking out. But my pick for Best Picture of 1971 would be The Last Picture Show. Just a great coming of age film set in Texas back in the, I guess, the 40s or the 50s. And it was a great book by Larry McMurtry, and it's a great film as well. Sybil Shepherd is just beautiful in it and does a great job, and Cloris Leachman does a great job. Timothy Bottoms, just a great movie, one of the great American movies there. So 1972, Godfather wins Best Picture, and they got that right. That's you can't argue with The Godfather. I mean, it's one of the best movies ever. Marlon Brando's as best role for me was in On the Waterfront, but this is probably his second best, and it's just a great movie. The only thing competition that comes close was Aguirre, Wrath of God, came out. It's about conquistadors searching for gold, and it's a great movie, a wonderful movie, definitely worth checking out. That didn't actually come out in America until 1977, but it was made in 1972. But The Godfather definitely is Best Picture. I can't argue with that. 73, The Sting wins Best Picture. It's okay. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Some contenders with The Long Goodbye, good detective movie. Don't Look Now, kind of a disturbing thriller thing. The Wicker Man, which is just a bizarre, gonzo, strange picture. A policeman goes to a little island off of England looking for a missing girl, and the inhabitants on the island are odd to say the least, and strange and disturbing things happen, and it's a crazy, weird, fun, great movie. The Wicker Man, check it out. The Friends of Eddie Coyle is another crime drama that's not very well known, but definitely worth checking out. It's a great one. But my favorite movie of 1973 would be The Paper Chase with John Houseman. It's about a guy's Houseman is a law professor, and it's this kid's first year of law school at Harvard. Which doesn't sound all that exciting, but it's really good. I really love that movie. I'd say that's the best picture of the year. They made that into a TV series several years later, towards the end of the 70s and the early 80s, but which was good too. But the movie's great. Best picture of the year, 73 in my book. So 1974, Godfather 2 wins Best Picture. Again, I can't argue with that. I think The Godfather, the original, is better than the second one, but the second one's great, so you can't really argue. Chinatown came out that year. That's almost as good. And Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. It's another Western action movie that's worth checking out. So those two would be contenders, but I guess Godfather 2 you have to go with. 1975, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the Ken Kesey novel and the Jack Nicholson starring role, which he won an Academy Award for, won Best Picture too. Can't argue with that. It's a great movie. I think that's Nicholson's last great performance, really. I think after that, he just became kind of a caricature of himself, and just got lazy and was never as good again. But Cuckoo's Nest is greatness, and I can't argue with that. Picnic at Hanging Rock came out in 75. That would be a contender, but I'd have to go with Cuckoo's Nest. 1976, Rocky wins Best Picture, which is kind of hard to believe now. The first movie was actually a good movie and a quality movie because they made all those crappy sequels, and Sylvester Stallone really can't act his way out of a paper bag, but he did well with Rocky. You got to give him credit. It's a good movie. Taxi Driver came out the same year. It's better than Rocky. Rocky's not bad, but Taxi Driver's a lot better, so I'd have to go Taxi Driver Best Picture. 77, Annie Hall, Woody Allen's movie. Not one of my favorite Woody Allen movies. It's a good one though, so I'll just go with that. I couldn't find anything else from 77 that I thought was deserving of Best Picture. I know people are going to say, what about Star Wars? I hate Star Wars. I'm sorry if that, I know a lot of people here like it, but I went and saw it. I thought it was the dullest thing in the world. So Annie Hall, I'll go with that. Um, 78, The Deer Hunter, one of the first movies, well, not the first, but one of the first movie about Vietnam. It was a good movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember it as being good. A couple of contenders, though, and one that's better, I think. I hadn't seen this. I saw it a couple of years. I saw it when it came out. We snuck in, even though it was an R-rated movie, and I hadn't seen it in decades. But saw it on TV a couple of 2 or 3 years ago. The first Halloween, which they made a lot of sequels. Most of them were nowhere near as good, but first Halloween was a really good movie. You know, it's a nice, good, scary movie, but it had a bit of a plot and a story to it, and the acting was not great, but it was good, better than in the sequels. So Halloween was a good, solid movie, and that kind of surprised me because I hadn't seen it forever. Animal House, which is another one of those classics. That's my best experience at a movie theater ever. Um, well, in the section of going with the girls and making out or whatever, but as far as just pure movie experience, I'll talk about that some other time. But um, it may be the funniest, best comedy ever. There's a couple of things like Bringing Up Baby, Philadelphia Story, Some Like It Hot, some of the old Chaplin stuff, but that may well be my favorite comedy of all time. But there's a movie called Straight Time with Dustin Hoffman, and he gets out of jail and he's on parole, and it's about the difficulties of being on parole and trying to go straight. And it's one of the 70s was really a great decade for cinema, and that's one of the last great ones of that decade. Well, not the last, but one of the last. So Straight Time, Best Picture, 78. Teresa Russell and Dustin Hoffman, really good movie. Check it out if you haven't. 79, and we'll stop there and I'll come back for the others. But 79, Kramer versus Kramer won Best Picture. Not a bad movie, but mainly just an entertaining movie. I think better movies would be Breaking Away and Being There with Peter Sellers. That has the Biltmore estate in it. I love that house. But Being There with Peter Sellers, Breaking Away about the bicycle, the kid that thinks he's Italian and wants to get in the bicycle race. Both really good movies, both better than Kramer versus Kramer. Better than all of them, though, is Apocalypse Now. You can't deny that. I would say that should have been the best movie of 1979. We'll end there, and we'll come back and start with 1980.